Hello and welcome to another episode of AGEUcational. This is Roy.
This is Terry.
So we are going to kind of multifaceted podcast. What we do is we're going to chronicle our journey, not only of our aging sequence, but also, how we deal with our parents. Terry's unfortunately lost her father to Alzheimer's, so he was in the Alzheimer's realm for about 12, 14 years and finally passed. So she has got a lot of experience dealing with that. But also, it's just the normal things that come up with parents that are aging is what really sparked us to do this. So it's going to be a little combination of us journaling, us chronicling our journey through this, as well as, having guests come on the show and professionals in this space. And so, with that, I'm going to let Terry introduce our guest today.
Yes, we are so excited today to talk to Rayna Neises. She understands the joys and challenges that come from a season of caring. She helped care for both of her parents during their separate battles with Alzheimer's over a 30-year span. She's able to look back on those days now with no regrets and wishes the same for everyone for aging parents. Rayna is the author of No Regrets, Hope for Your Caregiving Giving Season. She is an ICF certified coach, the host of a Season of Caring podcast, and a speaker who is passionate about offering encouragement, support, and resources aimed at preventing family caregivers from aimlessly wandering through this important season of life. Rayna, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and so I mean, this the caregiving. I guess the biggest thing we usually start out talking about is the communication. It's like anything else, so important, and it's so important to talk about communication before the emergency happens, is to try to
Pre-plan.
pre-plan, talk about things, get your aging loved ones desires. If you can get them to write it down, that's even better, but at least chronicle it so that when emergencies do arise, everybody seems to be on the same page.
Communication be so tricky because none of us want to age, right? And we
Right.
certainly don't want to talk about getting to the end of our lives. So I think it is tricky and it is so important. I agree.
Yeah, and it's a uncomfortable conversation. I try to talk about it with my kids, and I get still the hands over the ears, don't want to talk about this. And but it's like I try to tell them it's going to make it easier for you guys in the end. And and also, luckily my kids, and I think Terry can attest that her siblings were have a good enough relationship, it didn't become a thing. But the other part, we not only want to do what our parents or loved ones wish, but we just don't want it to tear a family apart
Yeah,
either.
the rest of the family dynamics go into play.
It is really
So,
important. I have one sister, and unfortunately for us, my mom was diagnosed at 53 years old with
oh
Alzheimer's.
my
Oh
And
gosh.
so
wow.
I was 16 when she was diagnosed, and she
Wow.
was nonverbal within 4 years. I say 3 to 4 years. She wasn't able to, put her own words together and have a conversation about what was important to her. So when I look back on that journey with my mom, we really didn't know what was important to her, what she would have wanted it to look like. My dad obviously was her primary caregiver and he was able to be her voice. But then 7 years after her passing, my dad was diagnosed. And so we definitely sat down and had some tough conversations and really talked through a lot more because we realized, number one, what it was going to be like. But we also knew my sister and I were going to need to be the ones to help make those decisions because, dad was able to do it for mom, but there wasn't anybody for him but us.
Right.
Oh my gosh. So you were young. And your dad, how old was your dad when he was diagnosed?
He was 72 and he lived 14 years with the disease. So
Yeah,
Wow.
it something.
Yeah, so it gives you a perspective of actually having to be the person to provide care, and that's even though your dad was there for your mom, it's still at such a young age that I can only imagine, how you must have felt going through that. But what are some of the, I guess, the top needs, or what are, what are caregivers lacking to give themselves? Because that's usually what we talk about when, people that care for others, they're so busy and focused to give to others that they typically tend to forget to give to themselves and take care of themselves, cut themselves a break about, not getting everything done. So, what are some things that you see that where caregivers are kind of hurting themselves by lacking in some areas?
I think honestly, time to themselves is probably the number one thing that they don't have. And without taking time for yourself, you don't take time for reflection. And my book is called No Regrets, and I've had people say, "Wow, that's a strong statement." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is." But it's because throughout that caregiving season with my dad, I took the time to reflect. What's working well? What's not working well? Why was I short with him today? Am I missing sleep? Did I have enough to eat? Really taking time to look at day by day, what's working, what's not working, what do I need to do differently in order to make this a better situation. And so it's not that I never did anything that I wish I hadn't done. It's that I was able to correct it as I went through the process. And I was really able to, by the time I buried him, reach that point of saying, I wouldn't have done anything different in the big picture of things. So I think as a caregiver, really, you have to take time to ask yourself those questions. And that's where honestly, having a coach can make a big difference, because sometimes you can't even think of the questions to ask yourself. And so having an outside person ask some of those questions and help you really get to the root of where some of those struggles are coming from can make a big difference too.
Oh, no, I was going to say, and that really is kind of all encompassing for everything, but the caregiving, I mean, if they aren't caregivers, isn't there a higher percentage of them going away before their loved ones do, because a lot of them don't take care of themselves, right?
Right. So overall caregiving, 30% pass away before the person they're caring for. But when you get into Alzheimer's, it's higher than that. It's in the 60s. And I think that's partially because we have, elderly taking care of each other. We have spouses taking care of each other. And so we don't take care of ourselves a lot of times unless somebody really does help remind us of those things, whether it be keeping doctor's appointments or getting the rest that you need. As my dad progressed in his disease, he didn't sleep as well, and you are worried about them wandering. And there's so much more that you have to stay on top of, that you really do have to make sure you protect those things. So you look at how much rest you're getting, how you're eating, all of those things. And I think as a caregiver, we get tired of hearing about self-care. I know I didn't like to hear about self-care, but as a person on the other side, I talk about it a lot because it does make such a big difference. And it's not self-care pampering yourself, because that isn't
Right.
realistic in the depths of your
Although
caregiving
that is
season.
important.
It is important to take little times to do that. It is. I
Yes.
agree.
Yeah,
But that isn't all that there is. There has to
no.
be the daily, everyday things. And I think it comes back to remembering what brings you joy and finding ways to bring that back into your life. Remembering how your body functions, that you have to have sleep, you have to have water, you have to eat well, all of exercise, all of those things.
Yeah, and that self-awareness is a huge component, because I served as a volunteer long-term care ombudsman here in the state of Texas for a long time. And, that's what we would typically see is when there were incidents of abuse, whether it be physical or mental or emotional, that it was typically when there was a short-staffed staff would have to maybe double over for weeks on end just to try to fill the gap. And that's usually when these incidents happen. And, I just relating that to even personally that, when we get tired, our fuses get short, things that we could normally tolerate irritate us. And so being sure that we get enough rest is very very important.
It is, and it can be more challenging than you realize. Again, when you're caregiving, there's not consistency. Oftentimes, the schedule is so inconsistent because of the person that you're caring for. And
Yeah.
so, those rituals that help us have good sleep, the rituals that we can develop to get to bed at a certain time and to read before we go to bed or take a bath or whatever it is that helps you get ready to sleep, can be interrupted. And then
Right.
you can be asleep and they can be up for something and that's interrupted. So it really can be
Yeah.
a challenge.
Yeah, this is where I think the conversation that we have prior to getting in these situations with others, because and I'll let Terry talk more to this, but being able to ask for help if you're in that, unfortunately with people being spread out all over the country, not all the time are siblings all right there to be able to pitch in, but when they are, it's such a benefit to just get some relief, even if it's for going home and getting that good night's sleep. And I know that Terry has a sister that's in California, and there's instances where through planning she'll come in and stay for a couple weeks to kind of relieve the two that live here. So again, we get back to the communication and all of that, is that if you can have these alternative plans. But the other part too, it's we're struggling with this a little bit, but the asking for help, is that it's okay as a caregiver to say, hey, I need some help. And, we need to try to talk our loved ones into being okay with getting non-family or outside help.
Yes, that's so important.
It is. I'm always emphasizing with my clients and on our podcast team, you have to look at the team. And I love that you mentioned sister that's in California, because I actually live 220 miles from my dad. And so I drove up and stayed with him in his home 3 days a week for 2.5 years. And then every other weekend for the last 2 years of his life, because I was able to do that with my family and that worked for our family. It doesn't work for
Right.
everybody, but at the same time, just
No.
because you're out of town doesn't mean you aren't a part of the team. And so many times I meet long distance caregivers who don't even think that they're part of the team. So I do think it's so important to realize that there are all kinds of people on your team. The medical staff are part of your team, your family members, the guy who mows the grass, getting the help and asking for the things that you need are so important.
Yeah, and I have my other sisters here in the Dallas area, and we kind of both, took mom and dad. It was like, she said, okay, I'm taking dad, you're going to take mom. Well, now that dad's been gone for 5 years, I don't think that's such a great idea. Just because it's not forefront in my mind, But my sister in California, she is very supportive, and she never questions anybody's decisions, or if we had an upcoming doctor's appointment for mom recently, she had a hospital stay, and she came up with a list of questions, and she's like, okay, well, just she helped in every way that she could. It really does take all of you to do it, but I know that everybody doesn't have somebody else to help with that. So
yeah, it's challenging, and not everybody gets along. I mean, the truth is siblings have problems, and a lot of times well before our parents get to that older age stage. So it is challenging, but I think again, the communication becomes so important to make that person feel wanted and needed, and to find things that they can do and feel like they're a part of it. So I lived, away from my family. So it was like I was home with my husband and kids on the farm 3 days a week, 3.5 days a week. And there were still things that needed to be done. It was all on my sister when I was out of town. And so I learned, I can make the phone calls. If we need to find in-home care, or if we need to look for a different doctor, I was the one who did those things. So I think, again, adjusting your perspective and making sure that you're including them. And I always say the key is invite. When we invite someone to dinner, we don't have an expectation. We aren't going to be all mad at them if they don't come, if it doesn't work for them, right? We're just going to offer the invitation. Are you available? Can you help with this? And so if we stop inviting, then they feel like they don't matter. So if we invite without expectations, we're more likely.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Exactly. No, you're right. I mean, you have to say what you need. And if you don't ever ask for it, you can never get it. And so I think
No.
also then we have to realize outside of our family, and you mentioned too, just getting our loved ones to be willing to take help outside of our family. But I think sometimes we sell them short and we don't offer different personalities and different people and activities that can be a part of our team. We we took my dad to a day stay program, and it was a memory care unit that had just people who came in during the day. And my aunt,
Yeah.
his sister, said, he's not going to like that. No way. Dad loved it. He went the full 4.5 years that we were caring for him, and he loved it. We called it his social club. Are you ready to go to the club and visit the
Oh,
guys? And
went to the
so
frat
sometimes
house.
we have preconceived ideas. Yeah, well, there were
Yeah.
more women than men, but
Yeah.
but there were some there.
Yeah.
I
And,
guess that
and,
could be true at a
and
frat house too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
and I think the day stays. I think it's good to talk about that
That's
for just a
awesome.
minute because so many of us of a certain age, we have the memories of the old nursing home model back, in the 60s and 70s when everybody was in the lobby in their wheelchair, and unfortunately, uh, there was no interaction, and it was just a bad sight. It was sickening, actually, the way that all happened. But today, things have changed so much, and some of these day stays, if you look around, if you have an option to choose, I know some that have very in-depth programs, art programs, music programs, writing. I mean, it's unbelievable
Games,
the
all kinds.
options that they give them to, be a part of something, but also to kind of work their mind, work their bodies.
For sure. And like I said, that socialization, it seems so interesting. My dad was a very social guy, but one of the things, he was extremely physically fit, and most people were shocked, but in his 80s, he was still playing volleyball 3 times a week and going to the gym 3 times a week. And so we
Wow.
continued as many of those physical activities that we could as well. But some of them, he became really self-aware that he wasn't the same as he had been before. And so he started
Yeah.
to give up. He actually played softball and traveled on a competitive team into his late 70s. And that was one of the first things he gave up. And I was so sad. And I said, Dad, why don't you want to play anymore? And he said, I don't want to be that guy that's the
Yeah.
weak
Yeah.
link on the
Oh,
team. And so
Yeah.
because these
oh.
Yeah.
people had known him for so long, he couldn't be comfortable with them. And in this
Yeah.
environment where there were, again, no expectations, he could walk into the day stay and enjoy and be himself where he was in that moment. And it was okay. There was no expectation for him to be something else. And so I do think
Right.
it's amazing all the things that they have planned and just that socialization. And then as a family member, it was a time for him to be safe, to be taken care of. And we also had the nurses and things on staff that we could run things by them. If we were trying a new medication, can you keep an eye out for any side effects? It's just our team grew significantly with them on the team. And so, again, I just think looking at and really evaluating who's on your team, where are your holes, and how can you fill those holes in a more creative way than just expecting family to do it all. Because I think that's one of the reasons why family caregivers burn out and are not doing as good of a job as they could, is because they think only family can. And it's just not true. The team needs to be a large group of people with all kinds of strengths and weaknesses. And I've actually created a quiz called the caringquiz.com, and it lets you go in and learn your caring style and learn a little bit about who you are as a caregiver and maybe what your strengths are, maybe some areas you might need some help on. And then through a series of emails that you get after taking the caring quiz, then you also get a chance to kind of ask your team members to take that quiz and see what their personalities are, and possibly see what other types of people you need on your team, not to mention what tasks you are responsible for and what tasks other people are responsible for, and are they a good fit? Because like all things in caregiving, we shouldn't do it all, and we might not have the right
Right.
personality to do that. And this is just, it is an act of love, and it is so important, but it's somewhat like a job. Every day there are responsibilities and things that people are counting on you for. And if that's outside of your zone, then you're probably going to burn out. So really thinking about your strengths and what you need to bring in for support that's not in your strength can make a big difference.
We had a little freeze up there. We'll try to
Oh, I froze?
regather and move on. Just yeah. I'm not sure.
Oh.
We had some app issues here too, so we'll just that's all right. We'll be good. So yeah, I think the providing the encouragement, kind of get back to that whole team. But I think that's a good.
I like the quiz.
Yeah, the quiz is good because that way there are different people that are.
Can add different things.
Yes, well, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and if we can kind of align those with the care that we're providing, I think that's
everybody wins.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking to a client one day and she was saying, by the end of the day, my mom and I are we're not jiving. It's just kind of tough. And I said, she might be sick of you by then. She laughed and she's like, well, and I said, well, you're it. That's all she sees. I mean, your husband's around in and out, but she sees you all day long. You're the one bossing her around, probably not that you're being mean, but you're trying to help. And I said, but she might be tired of you. If you bring somebody else in with a different personality, they might just bring a different, take to her day, and she might be a little easier to deal with by the time you get to that point. So I do think different personalities really can help even the person we're caring for.
Socialization is so important.
Yeah. The other thing is I think we have to put ourselves in that position of, now my child is typically it's our children, but now our child is the one that's trying to tell us what to do. And sometimes it's not the advice that we're giving. Sometimes it's just that it's very difficult to think. And then I think the other thing is that what I feel is it's not only that somebody's trying to influence you to do something or tell you what to do, but it's also maybe it's the realization now that all of a sudden somebody is having to tell you things to do to help you. And I think that can be very difficult on the aging psyche, because, it's just another, it's like, I don't need to wake up today and have another reminder that I'm getting old and that I need help. And that's, unfortunately, I feel like that's what happens when even though we feel we're delivering a message very encouragingly that will help the person, it's just
that's not what comes across.
Well, yeah, but it's just it's where they are in their mindset that it's like, I just don't really, I don't need this. I mean, I may need it, but again, it's just a reminder that I do need it, which is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even I think with Alzheimer's, sometimes they don't need it. And that was one thing that we really emphasized with the people that we asked to help care for my dad, was only step in when he needs it. Because today he might be able to pick up that toothpaste and put it on the toothbrush and brush his teeth. But tomorrow he might start to brush his teeth without toothpaste. So let him try and then step in and say, oh, Bob, can I go ahead and put some toothpaste on there for you? Only offer when it's needed. I think so many times with people with Alzheimer's, we have a tendency to just assume that today is the same as yesterday and that they're going to have help. I might as well just do it. And that doesn't leave them the dignity that they deserve. I mean, all of us have egos and it is reality. And as much as we can honor that, the more that they are happy and the less combative they are, the less frustrated they are with life. And only being a support. I was an educator. And so I always think of, when you're trying to help a child who's struggling, you don't tell them the word, you help them sound it out. You help them make each sound. If they don't know this sound, you tell them the sound they don't know. And then if they can't hear it, you help blend it together. It's small steps that you intervene and you offer support. You don't just come in and read it to them. And I think so many times with aging, we have a tendency to just come in and do it all instead of letting them do what they're capable of doing and assisting them where they need the help.
Just to get it done. We think we're just doing it because we're just going to get it done, make sure that it gets done, and then go on. We're not taking everything into account.
Exactly. It's not a race, although it feels like it sometimes, doesn't
it? Always, everything we want today. It's like everything's on demand, right now. Go through the drive-thru, get it. And then you get home and it's like, what? What happened today?
Yes.
Yeah. So, uh,
I was going to say, so you have a book coming out. When is your book coming out? And tell us about it.
Thank you. I am so excited about it. So my book is our story. So it is heartwarming stories, as people have called it, of our journey, as well as the practical tips of the things that we found as a family that helped us in helping both of my parents age. So the name of the book is No Regrets: Hope for Your Caregiving Season. And it is designed with practical tips and ideas mixed with stories. The first half is about the caring process, how to find the team that you need, how to honor your parent as you're caring for them as they age. And the second half is that yucky self-care word, but some things that I found really did make a difference for me in helping me coach myself through it and how to really be able to look back with no regrets. And so it will be in bookstores nationwide in June. But right now I have some pre-orders available. So if you actually visit your major retailers online and pre-order a copy, then you can visit my website at noregrets-book.com. And I'm actually giving away 100 free copies that are signed. So I still have quite
oh,
a few
awesome.
left. So if you pre-order, then there's a little form on my website that you can just fill out that form and I will drop a signed copy in the mail to you. And you'll have two. You can give one away as a gift in June when yours gets here. So again, that's noregrets-book.com.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and don't wait. Even if you're younger and not in this position right this moment, don't put off. Get it and learn it and read it and be prepared. I think that's a part of the other message with the communication part is just preparedness. It's never easy. You're not going to be able to.
And you never know what life is going to throw at you either. I mean, you can be prepared to a point,
right.
But you need to have all the basic. You need to have structure at least, to help.
Having those conversations, you're never going to regret that. And so even if something
Yeah.
changes, now is the time to do it.
Yep.
Making the investment in long-term care insurance or making the plans and understanding how much those things are going to cost, really being able to have those conversations, you're just not going to regret it. And the more often you talk about it, the less uncomfortable it is. And so I don't think you're ever too young to start having those conversations. I agree.
Yeah, and there's other things that we can do. They don't always have to be the difficult subjects or the subjects we don't want to address, but we can weave into that other things. And there's other providers out there, but there's a service that we've signed up for, and what they do is they send a question to our moms every week, and it gives our mom a chance to write things down, and it gives us a chance to learn about things maybe we never ask, or her to go more deeper into things that we know a little about. But excuse me, those are things that you can recreate on your own. And so I think the other part of this is don't wait till it's too late to find out your parent's story or your grandparent's story, whether you have to, interview them slowly like this, one question at a time, or if they're still able to get them to, write things out. But I think the information that they can transfer to us is invaluable, because there's still a lot of things that I don't know much about my parents or my grandparents' parents. I know a little bit about them. So that was some of the first questions that I kind of queued up for my mom, is to, tell us more about her grandparents, what they were like. So, we can make these conversations a little less tense and a little less undesirable by kind of weaving in some other things in there.
I agree. I think another way to broach some of those uncomfortable conversations is to talk about other people. So, Aunt Sally fell and she broke her hip. And when she went to get out of the hospital, she had to go to a rehab center. What would you want to happen if something happened like that? That just naturally brings those conversations.
Right, exactly. All right. Well, Rayna, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. But before we let you go, so what is a tool or a habit? What's something that you do every day, personal or professional, that really adds value?
I would have to say that self-reflective part of me. And that is through journaling, just asking myself some of those questions about the day. What was the best part of the day? What was the toughest part of the day? What do you want tomorrow to be different? And just taking the time to write those few extra sentences every day helps to impact me both in, making new choices and in being able to be thankful for all the things that happened that day.
Yep. Okay, awesome. Yeah, we do have, even when our days go bad, we do have a lot to be thankful. So let's don't lose sight of that. And I think the other thing that I kind of bring up about caregivers is, as in life, is that we can tend to beat ourselves up for things. We need to be lenient with ourselves, give ourselves a break. We may have had 10 things on our to-do list today, and we got 7 done, but we missed 3. And sometimes we can spend our day kicking ourselves for those 3 that we didn't get done, instead of celebrating the 7 things. Or maybe you just happen to have a good conversation with one of your parents and threw you behind. But let's celebrate those, let's celebrate the good things that happen through our day, for sure.
Give yourself grace.
Yeah. All right. So if you don't mind, tell us, on the season of caring coaching, who are your clients and how can you help them? And of course, where can they reach out and get a hold of you?
Sure. So most often I'm hired by professional women who are in that season of caring for their aging parents, and they're just feeling completely maxed out. They have the family, they have their own home, and then they have their parents' needs on top of that. And finding a way to be able to do it all well can be really frustrating. So that's what we work through, is what does it look like to be able to offer the support to your parent that they need, take care of your career, your family, and actually find time for yourself without the guilt, because that's a lot of what we deal with, is that guilt side, and really be able to just work that together and develop the plans that they need to really find the way to do what's most important and be able to look back later and say, I don't have regrets. I did what needed to be done. So that's what most of my clients look like. And you can find out more about A Season of Caring at aseasonofcaring.com. And I would love to have you pop on and just shoot me an email if you'd like to know more. I have free support groups and opportunities for workshops. So I just want to be able to come alongside and support in that season. I've been there, and it's not easy, but it is so worth it. I interviewed a lady on a podcast one time that said it's the hardest right thing I ever did. And I think that's so
I like
true.
that. Yeah.
I love the name too, A Season of Caring. That's really good.
Yep. All right. Well,
in the middle of it, you have to remember it's just a season.
I'm sorry?
I say in the middle of it, you really do have to remember it's just a season, and your parents aren't going to be here forever. Right. So that's what I want to encourage people to remember.
Yeah, and that's, kind of another thing is, even though it's not optimal, we still need to relish, every moment that we get to spend with them. Sometimes it's not optimal, but it's better than the alternative. Right. So take advantage of it, for sure.
For sure.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of AGEUcational. Of course, you can find us at www.AGEUcational.com. We're on all the social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then of course the video version of this will go on YouTube once the episode is released. Excuse me. You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, and Spotify. If we're not on a podcast platform that you listen to, if you'll send a note to me, I'll be glad to get us added to it. So until next time, that's going to do it for Roy.
I'm Terry.
Y'all have a wonderful day and take care of your loved ones.
Thank you, Rayna. We appreciate it.
Thank you.